So I want to welcome everyone to this episode of Deep Dive. I'm Kevin Benedict, your program host, and I want to introduce my guest, Lauren Smith. Lauren, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Glad to be here.
Now, Lauren is the EVP, or Executive Vice President of Revenue and Alliances for North America at Clickfox, a very interesting company that helps people improve their ability and understanding of customer journeys and all kinds of fun things.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
It's a mouthful of a title. It's not really that complicated, but we can get into all that.
So, Lauren, before we dig any deeper, just tell us about yourself, Lauren.
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in Northern California. I live in a town called Granite Bay, which is just outside of Sacramento. So love to be a little bit off the beaten path, but still close to civilization. So enjoy that life up here. And I've been at Clickfox for a long time. I've been at Clickfox going on 11 years, which is 77 years in Clickfox, or dog years. But I've been doing the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years, really focused on revenue and scale and the selling of our product. Also have a heavy focus in the channel and alliance scale and ecosystem that we're trying to build. Prior to that, I established our services practice. So when I started, we had a very small organization, and so I spent 4 or 5 years building out our professional services and consulting practice, and then moved into a revenue and a sales role. Prior to that, I have a consulting background. I was at Accenture for several years, delivering, back in those days, it was called CRM, but it was effectively analytics centered on the customer for major enterprises. And then there's another consulting company that's called Slalom Consulting, which is fairly large now. When I was there, we were opening our second office, so I helped open the Chicago office, and it's been a good career so far. I'm a Purdue University alumni, so it would be remiss to not mention that. I'm very proud of that. And my travels have taken me all over, from Chicago to Denver to San Diego, back here to Sacramento. So it's been really fun over the years, and I'm really happy with what we're doing at Clickfox now, and it's been really great.
Oh, that's exciting. We'll dig into there, but it just occurred to me that if Sacramento is on the edge of civilization, where am I in Boise?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wouldn't say the edge of civilization, but it kind of keeps me out of the Bay Area madness a little bit, but close enough if I want to get my fix that I can go down there and get some business done or have some fun. So.
Oh yeah, I'm just I'm an hour and 20 minutes away from Silicon Valley, and I'm there half the time anyway.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's easy. So
same thing. Amtrak right in, and you're good. So.
All right. It takes us about the same amount of time, too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And if I drive, it takes me twice as long as it does take you. So.
Oh, my. So, again, thank you for joining us, Lauren. Now, let's just dig in and say, over this almost 11 years you've spent with Clickfox, talk to me about how you've seen the whole process of sales and marketing change.
Yeah, it's that decade has been a very interesting one for. And I'll talk from a technology and a software perspective, but I think the biggest thing that's changed is the ways in which that you can reach out to and contact and educate and partner with your prospects and with your current customers. There's just a proliferation of ways in which you can reach out, traditional ways. In the last 10 years, social media, social selling, social connections. It sounds kind of silly to say because it's such a core of what we do today, but in 2008, it certainly wasn't. So the ability to leverage LinkedIn and Twitter and all those different ways has changed dramatically. I think so that's from a vehicle perspective. I think strategically, the market is extremely educated, extremely savvy, the amount of data and information and ways in which for a consumer, whether it's an enterprise or an actual human being, to understand what you do as a business has exploded. So it means that you've got to be very specific and targeted, and the consultative approach to selling, which has been around for 50 years,
Right.
has a whole new meaning now, where I have to know what Kevin wants, and I have to know what Kevin is really trying to accomplish, and realize that there's a lot of ways that Kevin can solve that problem, right?
Mhm.
There's if you're trying to build a deck, there's not one hammer you go to the True Value and buy anymore. There's 75 hammers, and you need to find the right one for the board that you happen to be hammering that afternoon. So I think there's a combination of complexity, because there's a lot of folks out there in the market trying to sell things. There's a lot of information, but I think the way in which you can get your message out and get content distributed and really engage and partner with customers actually makes that complexity a little simpler, right? So in a world of all kinds of options, you're able to actually tailor, more so than you could 15 years ago, your solution to the right buyer, which I think makes it a little more fun and a little bit easier, right?
Oh, absolutely. And because of the complexity and because of the desire to personalize, you have to use tools, don't you? There's
Without
no
a doubt.
way an individual or a human's going to remember that for a
There's no
large
way.
number of people.
That's right. There's
So,
no way.
yeah. So, talk to us about, why do companies call Clickfox? What are the problems they're actually trying to solve when they get a hold of you guys?
Sure. Well, there's two answers to that. There's the problem that they say they want to solve, and then the actual problem that they're trying to solve. But a lot of our initial conversations come from a need to really leverage data to drive change in the business. And that's a very broad statement, and there's 1,000 companies that say the same thing. But the bottom line is that there's immense amounts of information that are getting stored and tracked and logged in these major enterprises. I mean, to unbelievable levels, there's information that's out there. And there's been almost equivalent unbelievable amount of investment made internally in organizations to mine that and analyze that and really interrogate that data to understand where are our opportunities to improve as a business. I think what's happened is that those two worlds haven't met, and the investment in saving all this information and trying to get value out of this information, those worlds haven't aligned in the way that I think folks had hoped they were.
Mhm.
So a lot of our calls are from business owners, heads of retail banks, heads of property and casualty insurance, owners of the digital channels for different wireless providers, as examples. And they're basically coming to us saying, I need to understand how my consumer is experiencing my enterprise. And I know I have all the information, but I can't bring it together in a salient way. And I'm looking for a technology. I'm not looking for someone to come in and necessarily do it for me.
Right.
I'm looking for a technology that helps enable my smart people with all this data that I have to actually really understand what is happening across all these disparate interaction points, across all these disparate data points. It's almost an emotional or a humanized reason that they're reaching out. Nobody's buying customer journey analytics just to have customer journey analytics. It's
Right.
not a data warehouse, it's not
Yeah.
dashboarding, it's not BI. They're trying to say, my customer is the most important asset that I have, and I don't understand how they're experiencing my enterprise, and it's
Mm.
driving me crazy, and it's costing me money, and it's costing me consumers, and I need some help.
Ah, very interesting. So, how do you guys offer to solve that problem?
Yeah, so again, our positioning is all about what I just said. Your
Yep.
most important asset is that customer. It
Yep.
doesn't matter. Nothing else matters as much as that consumer. Not only emotionally, but financially. Those guys go away, and you're toast, right?
Yes.
And that consumer looks at the world in a way that no computer or system can look at the world. So when
Hmm.
I'm interacting with my bank, I don't look at my ATM transaction and my website interaction and my teller interaction and my call center conversation. I don't look at those as disparate different things.
Right.
That's
One
all, that's
brand.
all, that's it. That's all interacting with my bank. And I'm trying to accomplish something. I'm trying to transfer funds. I'm trying to dispute a charge on my card, something. That's how I look at the world. The problem is that the enterprises don't operate and aren't organized the same way. And so they're trying to look at me as a human being. I'm able to look at all that interactions and process all that information and call it one thing. Lauren Smith trying to dispute a charge on my credit card.
Right.
Well, the banks don't look at it that way, right? Not only technically, but even organizationally, they are set up in individual channels. And what's happened is that's how those businesses were designed, right? It started with I'll continue a banking example. It started with a branch, and then they added a call center, and they took all the branch activities and tried to replicate it in the call center. Then they added a website. They took all the call center activities and tried to replicate it in a website, mobile app, so on and so forth, right? So they're very siloed, and the the way in which they try to understand how I behave is very, very difficult. So what Clickfox does is come in and says, okay, let's take all, you have all the data. Let's take all that information about how your consumers interact across channels, and let's build you a view and a capability to understand from your consumer's perspective with real data how those interactions are occurring. Where are there friction points? Where am I frustrated? Where am I causing you unnecessary costs in your enterprise because I try to self-serve and I can't, and so on and so forth.
Interesting. So talk to us about and help us understand the definition of journey in your world.
Sure.
When does a journey start? When does it end?
Good
What
question.
how do you understand what are the significant data points within a journey? Is it a 18-step journey or a 97-step journey?
Right.
Talk to us about that concept.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I go back to your first question, which is what's gotten easier. How is selling changed, right?
Yes.
Well, 10 years ago, we were educating people on what the heck a journey was and why you needed to look at your business in a connected way.
Right.
Today, that's not a problem. Everybody gets it. Now, the challenge is the journey space, I use air quotes here, is extremely complicated. It's extremely complex because there's
Yeah.
all kinds of different factions, often warring factions. So, from our perspective, a journey is simply context. That's all it is. There is a there is a set of interactions that and actually to be honest, it goes back to any piece of data. Data can be pieced together in any fashion. We happen to focus in the customer journey space.
Yes.
So you can interact with let's say your energy provider any number of ways across any number of channels. And to your point, that may happen in one interaction on the mobile app in 45 seconds, or that may happen over 37 days across 6 phone calls, 4 live visits, 19 web visits. But you still might be trying to do the same thing. That one interaction might have been paying my bill, and that second interaction may have been trying to pay my bill. That's
Mhm.
still the same journey, right?
Yes.
The journey is nothing more than the context from the consumer's perspective of what they're trying to accomplish. So things like there is no low satis in my opinion, there is no such thing as a low satisfaction journey. There
Mhm.
are journeys that end up in low satisfaction, right?
Yes.
There are journeys that end up in a customer churning, but there isn't a churn journey per se, right?
Got
It,
it.
it's an outcome. So it's context. It's the context of why I'm doing something. Why am I interacting with you? I'm trying to buy something or service something or understand something better.
Got it. So I imagine a lot of that is focused on marketing. So understanding the marketing, bringing them through, awareness and acquisition and
Sure.
adoption and advocacy and all that kind of stuff. And you could say those are some broad kind of themes within there. But let me ask you a more specific question. How has the
Yeah.
subscription economy kind of changed people's understanding of
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple answers. In the subscription economy and the paradigm that comes with that, where commitments are less and expectations are high and competition goes through the roof. I think the need to understand at scale the full picture of how your consumers are experiencing your company and your products and interacting with you, starting with the sell all the way to the use and service of whatever product they buy, it becomes even more critical that you understand that full picture, because you don't have the luxury of, let's think about the wireless world 5 years ago.
Hmm.
You were locked into 12, 24, 36-month contracts. If I'm a wireless carrier and I screw up my customer experience for the first 9 months, didn't really matter, right? I mean, there may be some extreme cases, but you're done, you're locked in. Now, with an ability to get out whenever I want to, I have to ensure that I care about you. You know that I'm putting things in front of you from a channel option perspective, from a service perspective, from a product perspective, that will keep you recurring as a customer, right? It's a challenge we faced. I mean, the software industry is almost, for us, it's a subscription model. And we'd love to have long-term 10-year agreements, but it just ain't how the world works these days.
Right.
So we have to drink our own medicine or eat our own dog food or whatever
Yeah.
analogy you want to use,
Yeah.
and continue that same level of service. And without being able to really understand empirically what your customers are experiencing, you put yourself at great risk for losing those.
Got it. So what's your advice to, once you have this data in front of you and you have a relatively clear understanding of what your customers' journeys are all about, how do you act on that? What do
Yeah.
you have advice for leaders?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the biggest challenge that Clickfox as a company has is that it's not our customers' data. Our customers' data is good. It's not our platform's ability to find insights. Without fail, we always find insights that are amazing and through the roof. It's helping our customers and partnering with them to drive that change, right? Analytics for analytics' sake is of very little, if any, use, right? So a couple of things. One is you have to have buy-in from your peers in other organizations. And what I mean by that is the nature of what Clickfox brings is a connected view of data across silos. Well, that's difficult enough to do without Clickfox, and we make that easier. But what also becomes difficult is getting all the different leaders and organizations of those different silos to talk the same talk.
Yes.
So being able to sit down in a room and say, we're not going to analyze what's wrong with the website today. We're going to analyze what's wrong with card activation today, independent of where it happens. And I need the marketing guy, and I need the call center gal, and I need the website person. I need them all in a room to talk about that. So
Yeah, because our scores are going to suck no matter whose responsibility
that's
it
right.
is if it's a
Well,
bad
that's it.
experience.
That's exactly right. And so that's an easy thing to say. It's often hard to do, but it
Yeah.
can be done. It doesn't mean you have to reorganize. It doesn't mean you just have to get folks on the same page to say, are we really going to go solve this problem, or are we going to continue to stay within our silos and just worry about our own individual MBOs
Right.
and
Right.
pretend like nothing's happening, right? I'd say the other thing is really you need most organizations today are making decisions, even with the ridiculous amounts of data that they have, they're making decisions on very small pieces of information and very small insights. So they'll make a decision, a major wireless company will send out 10,000 surveys, and they'll make major decisions on the results of those 10,000 surveys, even though they have 70 million subscribers, right? So you need an ability to get everything. And I know that sounds daunting, but boiling up everything into a really empirical, fact-based answer can help you build business cases to justify your spend with the CFO, can
Yeah.
help you really understand in detail what are the levers we have to pull to go get that done. And then the last thing I'll say is you have to measure the results. And again,
Mm,
that's the Captain Obvious statement of the year. You know, all the recent business school grads that are watching this are probably like, well, yeah, of course you got to measure. Well,
sure.
nobody does. Nobody measures stuff, right? And it's not because they don't want to. It's because they don't have the data and the ability to say, I turn knob A on Monday. Let me go look on Friday and see exactly what happened with that change. And so you need a fact-based way to not only size but also measure the benefits of, so you can continue to get these wins and build this program, right?
Right. So, Lauren, talk to me about the utility of your ClickFox environment. Is it used in real time, or is it really a step back and study what has already happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, the answer is both. The majority of our customers are giving us data every day, so on a daily basis. And I'd say 95% of our customers are taking information and then running it through ClickFox on a daily basis, and they're using that as a interrogation analytics backwards looking type of approach. Um, on the real time side, part of our challenge is that there's so much information to connect. Our value prop is taking all this data that's never talked before and making it talk.
Uh,
And by the nature of that, it's difficult for enterprises to stream all that information and package it all up and send it in a more real-time way. I will say that even if something's 24 hours in arrears, part of the nature of being able to see the customer journey over time is a valuable input into real-time decisioning that our customers make. So as an example, let's say that so we have some customers that will take the last 30 days of behavior for every customer they have, and they'll put them into certain profiles and they'll tag those people, and they will treat them differently in a store or in a marketing campaign or in the call center, or they may get a tailored mobile apps screen based on what their behavioral profile was over the last 30 days. So they can leverage ClickFox data as they make real-time decisions, even if that ClickFox data is not being fed and streamed in real time, if that makes
oh, I
sense.
get it. So you can recognize patterns and then build those pattern recognitions into real-time environments. So if that pattern starts to emerge, different behaviors can be done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, leverage a lot of times, automation, AI, robotics, proactive treatment of the customers. Those are the buzzword. That's the buzzword bingo topics
Mhm.
for the last 6 months. But a lot of the problems with those tools is that they're not fed the right contextualized data.
Ah,
And oftentimes they're making decisions on only who someone is and maybe not who someone is and what they've been doing. And so what we can provide are basically variables into those models that say very specifically, here's what Kevin has done, here's the order it happened in, here's the time it took him, and all of that data and those attributes can be leveraged to say Kevin needs to get offer A versus offer B. When we're trying to promote some new product or some upgrade or something like that.
mm. Thank you for sharing that. And so, Lauren, because your title is both EVP of Revenue and Alliances, I'm going to mix those two. And I'm
Sure,
going to ask you this question. You at the center may have all kinds of capabilities. You're using ClickFox, you have visibility, you have data, and you're doing journey analytics. But how do you take that same value and benefit out to the channels? Because I know a
sure.
lot of companies, 70% of their sales are done through their channels. So that means 70% of their sales are out in an environment that's not covered by corporate marketing, not covered by all the cool
Yeah.
tools that corporate has. And so you're like, man, is there any way I could extend some of the power of the stuff I'm doing out through my channels? How do companies address that?
Yeah, so it's immensely valuable if you can crack it. It's very hard to crack in some cases. I think there's a couple of things that we found, right? So you have to, and we've learned lessons the hard way. We've got some bruises and scrapes from doing it wrong. We've got some wins from doing it right. But the number one thing that's important, and again, this may sound obvious, but people really need to have it sink in, is it has to be 100% equitable between the two companies. If there's a faux equity, and you really, I'm small, you're big, and I expect you to walk me into every account, and vice versa, it's just not going to work. And so there has to be true equity up front, and that's very hard to get. But if you find it, it's important. I would say that you also have to make a decision if you're looking to scale through channel. You've really got to sit down and figure out, what's the right organization to help me do that? And am I ready to do that with some organizations? So if you think about, for a company like Clickfox, which is a smaller analytics platform, we found there's really two paths, right? One is you find smaller, more boutique firms that are really interested in wrapping their arms around journey analytics and get really excited about, the potentially, evolving amount of revenue that may come out of that, right?
Yes. Yes.
The other side is you've got your huge SIs and consulting firms, right? Your Capgemini, Accenture, PwC, those guys. Very exciting. And we've had some great success with those guys. And you just need to be ready for what that means. It probably means a dedicated resource. It
Yes.
means that they're going to bring you a crush of interest and of meetings and of opportunities that you need to be ready to grab. And if you're
Yeah.
not, they're going to move on, right?
Yeah.
Because they've got P&Ls to run, and they need to see line of sight to big dollars to
Yes.
do that investment. So again, it's really assessing, where do I fit and what am I ready for? Am I going to invest in channels? Then
Yeah.
you probably need someone to run that. You need sales minded partner leads to own one or two of those partners. And the thing that people really don't think about, you need enablement people to help enable those partners to come to bear. And
Yeah.
that's not typically a salesperson. It might be somebody from your services practice. It might be somebody else, but you really need someone to give them the bear hug to say, I'm here for you. Let's go get this done. And folks, we made the mistake, and folks tend to underinvest in that piece. But if you do it right, 70% of revenue from channel would be amazing, right?
Oh, absolutely. What we see there is that when you start expanding on channels, there's also a big expansion requirement on content that they can use to sell, that they
Sure.
can use to enable your solution and all that kind of stuff too. So there's a big demand there. So let's talk about that from a marketing and sales perspective. Let's talk about content
Yep.
specifically. How have you seen the demand and requirement for content change over the past few years? Are people wanting more video walkthroughs or feature walkthroughs or customer enablement stuff, sales enablement, or is it really the same stuff? What are you
Yeah.
seeing? What's the demand for content and how's that changed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say a couple things. Stream of consciousness, right? And it could be different for partners versus the market in general versus consumer versus customers. But absolutely, people want videos, multimedia, interactive content, hands down, without a doubt. They want to see videos of your product. They want to see people using it. They want to see customers talking about it. And it honestly, there's a lot of the kind of cartoony 1 minute, 2 minute videos, which are great. But what we found, people want to see the thing in action, and they don't care if it's grainy. We've started to have some of our customers actually record themselves in Google Hangout or GoToMeeting or something using our product, and then we'll edit it up, get permission, and share it. And it's not going to win any cinematography awards, but it's really valuable because it's real. So
Yeah.
I'd say that for sure. I think people are growing tired, honestly, of blog posts and what I'll call kind of half-baked white papers.
Yeah.
People want white papers if they are legit and really thoroughly thought out. let's say McKinsey level
Yeah.
white paper
Yeah.
stuff, right? They really crave that. Um, so actually, I've never thought about this, but there's the spectrum, right? You've got this multimedia, quick hit,
Yeah.
engage, and then you've got this deep knowledge, insights, something that someone can really sit down for half an hour and sink their
Yeah.
teeth into and get value out of. And everything in the middle, we find to be pretty ineffective from our perspective, right? Um, the other thing I would say is back to your first question around how things have changed. Um, Social media has made it uh, too easy, probably, to get content out.
Mhm.
And it's not a bad thing. It just means that things start to get a little diluted and watered down.
Yeah.
So finding the right swing for your customer base, your prospects around what they want to see is super important. And I would say that more content probably isn't the answer, but getting the right content to the right people is what the challenge needs to be, right? So I
Got
wouldn't
it.
spend all day.
Curated content into the hands of the right people.
That's right. And we've struggled, just to be honest. I mean, over the last 3 years, we finally, in the last year, I think we've hit it. You've got to be very deliberate. Um, Especially, I mean, in our space, in the customer journey space, everybody from Clickfox and other smaller companies like that to consulting firms to big dogs like IBM, Oracle, and Salesforce, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's doing customer journeys and they all say the same thing,
Yeah.
even though their products could be vastly different. A survey tool might have the same content as Clickfox on their website, even though we're entirely different things.
Yes.
So what we've learned is to be very deliberate. And it's hard because you feel like you're not being strategic because you want to talk about the big picture. But people really want you to say, this is exactly what I do. This is exactly how it works. And
Yeah.
I don't care about your thesaurus, right? I just
Yeah.
tell me what you do because
Yeah.
it needs to sink in 10 seconds, right?
Yes. Oh, that's great insight. And thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because you're the expert because you're talking to all these guys every day. And those little nuggets, like you just shared there, I mean, where do you get that except from experts?
Yeah, well, yeah, and we're in the the trenches every day trying to figure out what resonates, what works.
Yes.
Our only job is to make sure that we're solving our customers' problems in any way possible. Hopefully, that's with our product, but we're out there trying to figure out what are the issues that they're trying to solve, and how do I line up what we do with those issues, and then the biggest thing is how do I bridge that gap to communicate.
Absolutely.
That's the new issue is not can I solve your problem? How do I educate you that I can solve your problem? Right?
Absolutely. So the last question here, and this is not one that you and I really talked about earlier, but I think it's something
Uh-oh.
that our conversations led to.
Wild card.
Influ- Influencer marketing, Lauren. You know,
Yeah.
because people can't read everything. They don't like the stuff in the middle. They want real content like McKinsey style reports
Yeah.
or simple, real quick idea starters that might be an animated video on a concept or abstract technology. But influencers, those that they just perceive are the experts, they want to keep going back to the well. How do you guys engage with those? And what's your thoughts around influencer marketing?
Yeah. So it's the path of least resistance, right? To getting to bigger people, of course. So the challenge is finding in your industry with your customer base and prospects, what's the best way to go get that done. So we've got a couple. Right? We focus a lot in two spaces. One is we're an analytics product. At the core of what
Mhm.
we do analysis. We're taking data and we're allowing our customers to interrogate that and take a position on that data. So we go after analytics experts, right? Somebody that can give us the credibility of their legitimate kind of mathematical and scientific reputation, right? That says Clickfox they've got the juice, it's real, they've got all the right stuff, and this is really the right way you should do that. So think about that from a
Mhm.
technical perspective. Then on the other side, we go partner with a lot of our customers. we try to turn into influencers.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we're very proud of our customer base. It's a blue chip base of massively successful companies. But we try to get some of our customers and help them grow their brand, and at the same time talk about all the great things that we're doing. So there's this symbiotic relationship there. So we've got you know, executives at a lot of our customers that have a desire through their corporate communications team or individually to become an influencer in the market, and we'll try to partner with them and feed them information and content that helps them become that influencer themselves on the business side.
Mhm.
So, you know, we do a foundational thing around legitimizing our product as something that everyone needs to look at from an analytics perspective, and then you get a little bit more of the emotional side of things from the executive saying, we use Clickfox. Don't worry about how it works. We solved this problem with Journey Analytics.
Yes.
And this guy says, here's how it works, right? So
Yeah.
there's kind of a mix that way.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, I want to thank you so much, Lauren.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Kevin.
Pulling back the curtains, and because you're talking to these guys every day about these problems and you're solving things. So to be able to pick your brains and get some insight is extremely valuable to all of us. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. It was a good time.